Imagine tuning into the White House press briefing, expecting your standard dry policy updates on federal spending.
Right. The usual stuff.
Yeah, but instead you get a daytime television legend standing at the podium.
It's quite a visual.
It really is. And in the span of like 20 minutes, he is fielding aggressive questions about the president's cholesterol, defending this multi-billion-dollar international drug pricing strategy, and then, without missing a single beat, literally diagnosing political opponents with the psychiatric syndrome.
Wow.
I mean, we are looking at a dizzying intersection of federal healthcare guidance, the total weaponization of political psychology, and, the absolute latest 2026 administration shakeups.
It really is a profound structural shift in how the executive branch is communicating and operating right now.
It is. And we are going to break all of it down for you. But real quick, please take a second to like, subscribe, and follow the show. It genuinely helps us keep bringing you these deep dives.
It does. Thank you.
Also, just a brief update on the Martin Stevens front. So in the matter of Martin Stevens v. OpenAI, there is no lawsuit yet. A voluntary quiet period is currently in place, and the dead man's switch has not been activated. We are definitely keeping an eye on it.
We are indeed.
So let's look at the mission for today's deep dive. We've got a massive stack of sources on our desk.
Huge stack.
Yeah, and we are going to be detailing some really sweeping administrative updates from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Right.
We'll also be decoding some truly wild diplomatic controversies unfolding overseas and doing a deep psychological breakdown of a term you are seeing literally everywhere right now, Trump Derangement Syndrome.
And right at the top here, I need to firmly state something for you, the listener.
Oh, yeah, very important.
The sources we are diving into today, they contain highly politically charged content. And I mean from both left-wing and right-wing perspectives. So we want to be explicitly clear here. We are absolutely not endorsing any viewpoints.
Yeah.
We are not taking sides, and we are not validating any of the political claims made in these articles.
Right, we're just the messengers.
Exactly. Our mission here is simply to impartially unpack and analyze the ideas, the mechanics, and, the underlying logic contained in the original source material, just so you can understand the broader context.
Yeah, we are just your guides to figure out how this all works. So let's start with the most visible aspect of the administration right now, the White House press briefing room.
It's been busy.
So busy. Over the last few days, we've seen some very unexpected figures stepping into traditional roles. It's blending medical authority with federal policy in a way I don't think we've ever really seen.
No, it's definitely new.
Right. So White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is currently on maternity leave. She welcomed her baby girl, Viviana, on May 1st.
Which is great.
Yeah. But because of her absence, the administration has been, rotating different figures through the briefing room. And stepping up to the podium was none other than Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Which, is a fascinating visual for a lot of people.
Very surreal.
But it actually makes complete sense when you look under the hood at his current role and, his actual resume.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So, Dr. Oz is currently serving as the 17th administrator for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. That's CMS.
Right, working under HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr.
Exactly. But his background is just uniquely tailored for a modern, media-driven administration. Yes, he has 9 Daytime Emmy Awards from his television career.
Which is what everyone knows him for, right?
Right, exactly. But he also holds a joint MD and MBA from the University of Pennsylvania. That's their medical school and the Wharton Business School.
Wow. Wait, really?
Yeah. He's also a Harvard undergrad. And interestingly enough, he founded a national teen health nonprofit that raised $100 million.
$100 million?
Yeah, to deploy college graduates into high schools to teach diet and mental resilience.
Okay, so he brings a very specific, almost multifaceted kind of authority to that room.
He really does.
Which he immediately had to use, honestly, because the briefing's first major clash was entirely about the president's personal health.
Right, the Walter Reed questions.
Yeah. Reporters were just aggressively questioning President Trump's 4th publicly announced visit to the Walter Reed Medical Facility. Because, 4 visits in a short time span seems really unusual.
Well, traditionally, yes. A president might only go to Walter Reed, say, once a year for a scheduled annual physical.
Right. But Dr. Oz actively defended the visits. He told the press pool that Trump is just, quote, curious to make sure everything is going in the right direction.
Right.
And Oz insisted that the president, aces the test every single day and likes the results. He specifically claimed Trump's numbers, like his cholesterol and his blood pressure, are, quote, spectacular.
And notice the pivot there.
When you...
He leverages his medical authority to validate the president's health. And then he uses that exact momentum to pivot directly into the actual substantive policy he's there to discuss.
Ah, right, the CMS guidance.
Exactly. As CMS administrator, Oz dropped some major guidance. First, he detailed the push for what the administration is calling Trump RX.
Right, I saw this in the sources.
Yeah. This is a program aiming to secure popular weight loss and diabetes drugs. Specifically, they're targeting Wegovy and Ozempic from Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly.
Okay.
And they want to secure these for Americans at a capped rate of just $50 a month.
Wait, a $50 cap? How is that even legal?
Yeah.
I mean, Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly aren't just going to, voluntarily take a massive pay cut on their most profitable drugs, right? How does CMS actually enforce that kind of price drop?
That is exactly where the second policy Oz discussed comes into play. It's called the most favored nation drug pricing model.
Okay, walk me through that.
The mechanics of this are really crucial. Historically, the American consumer has essentially subsidized the pharmaceutical research and development for the rest of the developed world.
Because we pay so much more.
Exactly. Companies charge massive premiums in the U.S., while European nations negotiate much lower prices.
Right.
So the most favored nation model enforces a rule that the U.S. government will simply not pay more for pharmaceuticals than the lowest price paid by other developed nations.
Oh, wow. So they're just pegging the price to Europe's price.
Effectively, yes. It is the administration telling Europe and these pharmaceutical companies that the global pricing structure is being completely reset.
That is massive.
It is. The administration claims this single mechanism will save $600 billion over the next 10 years.
600 billion. I mean, that isn't just a discount. That is a structural overhaul of the entire pharmaceutical market.
Without a doubt.
And Oz didn't stop there either. He also highlighted a massive crackdown on Medicaid fraud. He noted that CMS has already recouped $1 billion out of a $2 billion debt from the state of California.
Right, the California clawback.
Yeah. The sources say this stems from the state providing full dental and vision benefits to undocumented immigrants. But again, walk me through the actual mechanism here. How does the federal government just reach in and pull $1 billion back from California?
Well, it comes down to how Medicaid is funded, because Medicaid is a matching program.
Okay.
The federal government matches state funds to provide health care, but federal law mandates those federal dollars can only be used for eligible citizens.
Right, that makes sense.
So California, which is legally within its own state rights,
Right.
decided to use state money to expand benefits to undocumented immigrants.
Right, they can do that with their own money.
Exactly. However, by auditing California's books, CMS identified that federal dollars had actually bled into the state's undocumented health care pool through basically accounting overlap.
Oh, I see.
So once that was identified, CMS didn't, ask for a check back. They simply garnished future federal transfers to claw that money back directly.
Wow. It is genuinely wild to watch this all play out. I mean, you have Dr. Oz at the podium, and it almost feels like a reality TV medical reveal at first.
Complete with dramatic cholesterol test results.
Yes. But then he just flips a switch, and suddenly he's explaining the audits of state Medicaid matching funds and international pharmaceutical pricing parity.
It really blurs the line between clinical advice, television charisma, and hard federal enforcement.
Exactly. And that makes me really wonder about public trust. You know, when a TV doctor steps into a bureaucratic enforcer role, what does that mean for you, the listener?
It's a great question.
How do you separate the daytime TV persona from the guy executing multi-billion-dollar federal mandates?
Well, psychologically, it's the weaponization of a parasocial bond.
A parasocial bond.
Yeah. Viewers feel like they already, quote-unquote, know and trust Dr. Oz from years of watching him in their living rooms.
Right, he's a familiar face.
The administration is actively leveraging that pre-existing media trust to sell incredibly complex, structurally disruptive healthcare policies.
That's fascinating.
It forces you to constantly evaluate, are you being persuaded by the underlying data of the policy, or are you just comfortable with the delivery?
Yeah, because it feels familiar. And, that strategic blurring of lines isn't just happening in domestic healthcare. If we look at the international sources in our stack, it's totally spilling over into how this administration handles global health and diplomacy, too.
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing a really clear pattern where traditional bureaucratic agencies are just being completely bypassed.
The contrast is really striking when you look at how foreign policy is traditionally conducted versus what is happening right now.
Case in point, during that exact same press briefing, Dr. Oz just casually mentioned that the U.S. is negotiating with Kenya to set up an Ebola quarantine facility.
Right.
And that detail ties directly into Secretary of State Marco Rubio's recent and honestly very tense Senate testimony regarding the current global Ebola outbreak.
It does. And this reveals a massive internal friction regarding global health mechanics.
How so?
Well, during his testimony, Rubio admitted that Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. actually froze $40 million in funding that was meant for Gavi.
What, 40 million? Okay, for those who might not follow global health infrastructure every day, what exactly is Gavi and why does freezing their funding matter so much?
So Gavi is the premier global public-private vaccine alliance. Their mechanism is pooling demand for vaccines from developing countries.
To make them cheaper.
Exactly, to drive down prices and guarantee a market for the manufacturers. They're basically the logistical backbone for responding to outbreaks like Ebola in Africa.
Okay, so they're critical.
Highly critical. But Secretary RFK Jr. froze those U.S. funds over his well-known, quote-unquote, vaccine safety concerns.
Wow.
And this essentially paralyzed the pipeline right during a crisis. It created such a massive diplomatic and public health gap that Rubio admitted the State Department had to completely override HHS.
Really? They just went around them?
Yeah. They had to re-engage with Gavi themselves just to keep the vaccine development infrastructure intact.
So you literally have the State Department having to step in to do the health department's job.
Essentially, yes.
But then, and this is the crazy part, it turns out the State Department isn't even doing its own job.
The UFC incident.
Yes. During those same Senate hearings, Democratic Senator Jackie Rosen just grilled Rubio over a major diplomatic absence. Rubio was at UFC 327 down in Miami, sitting cage-side with President Trump.
Right.
Instead of attending critical peace talks with Iran that were happening over in Pakistan.
And the optics of the Secretary of State choosing a UFC fight over Middle East peace talks were, as you can imagine, heavily scrutinized.
I mean, yeah.
But look at who went instead. Instead of the Secretary of State, President Trump sent Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy and Real Estate Executive Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law Jared Kushner to handle negotiations.
Now, Rubio defended his absence by arguing he was, quote, co-located with the president in Miami, saying he was stepping into a back room to receive updates and advise Trump in real time.
That was his defense, yes.
But the kicker, those Iran talks abruptly ended on Monday without any resolution, sending real estate executives and family members to negotiate with Iran instead of the Secretary of State. I mean, that feels like a massive shift.
It is a deliberate return to transactional diplomacy.
Transactional diplomacy.
Yeah. See, traditional institutional diplomacy views Middle East peace as a delicate, multi-generational treaty.
Whoa.
It requires immense State Department nuance, historical context, career diplomats.
It's a traditional way.
Exactly.
Right.
This administration is signaling that they view these global conflicts totally differently, almost as high-stakes real estate deals to be brokered by trusted dealmakers in the president's inner circle.
Wow.
They are just bypassing the institution entirely.
And that pattern of, unconventional delegation brings us to yet another administration shakeup that completely shocked Capitol Hill.
The D&I nomination.
Yeah. Bill Pulte has been nominated as the acting director of national intelligence, stepping in to replace Tulsi Gabbard.
And the pushback on this has been severe, notably from within the president's own party.
Yeah, that stood out in the sources.
Republican senators like John Cornyn, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, and John Thune are openly expressing shock.
But wait, Bill Pulte, isn't he from the housing sector? I feel like I know that name from real estate.
You do, exactly. He is a housing executive with a background at Fannie Mae.
Okay.
And that is precisely the Republicans' concern. Pulte's complete lack of national security experience. Furthermore, they cite fears that he will actively, quote, weaponize the intelligence community.
How do I think that?
They're pointing to his history of using his corporate role at Fannie Mae to attack political opponents.
Oh, I see.
To understand why this really matters, you have to look at the mechanism of the D&I role. The Director of National Intelligence is essentially the editor-in-chief for the entire intelligence community.
Okay, the editor-in-chief.
Yeah. They synthesize raw data from 18 different agencies, the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, and they figure out what the objective front-page headline is for the president's daily brief.
I get it now. So the senator's fear is that if you put someone with a history of corporate political attacks in that seat, they won't act like an objective editor.
Right.
They'll act like a PR rep, basically, only printing the intelligence headlines that validate what the administration wants to hear.
Precisely. It dismantles the objectivity of the intelligence pipeline.
So if we look at the whole board here, we have a daytime TV doctor running the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Yep.
We have real estate executives handling incredibly delicate Middle East peace talks. And we have a housing executive nominated to be the editor-in-chief of national intelligence. It really feels like we are witnessing the complete dismantling of traditional expertise in government.
We really are. It's a paradigm shift from institutional expertise to loyalist execution.
Loyalist execution, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Traditional expertise values process, historical knowledge, and interagency consensus. What we're seeing now is an administration that views those traditional structures as an impediment, what they often call the, quote, deep state bureaucracy.
Right.
They are explicitly prioritizing individuals who will execute the executive's will without institutional friction, whether that means freezing international vaccine funds or bypassing the State Department entirely.
And, when you replace institutional experts with staunch loyalists, you inherently signal to the public that politics isn't about policy anymore. It's a war of us versus them.
That's the underlying message, yes.
And that hyper-partisan environment is exactly what breeds the psychological phenomena we're looking at in the final part of our stack today. We have to talk about the weaponization of psychiatric terminology, specifically Trump Derangement Syndrome.
This is a trend that has been escalating for years, but the sources show it is reaching a literal legislative boiling point right now.
Let's go back to Dr. Oz's press briefing for a second, because the closing moment was just wild.
It really was.
Cara Castronova, who is a reporter for Lindell TV, stood up and literally asked Dr. Oz for, quote, medical advice to cure Americans suffering from, quote, Trump Derangement Syndrome, or TDS.
And as a medical professional, acting in a federal capacity, how did he respond?
He responded by calling opponents, quote, stupid. He said that treating stupid is really hard, and then he just pivoted right back to talking about weight loss drugs.
Right.
But what's truly alarming isn't just a reporter throwing around the term in a briefing. It's that this insult is moving from Twitter into actual state and federal legislation.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the attempt to codify a pejorative into law.
Yeah, tell me about this bill.
We have sources detailing Representative Warren Davidson, a Republican from Ohio, introducing what he calls the TDS Research Act of 2025.
The TDS Research Act.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Yeah, this bill formally demands that the National Institutes of Health study the psychological roots of Trump Derangement Syndrome.
Instead of what?
Well, Davidson argued the NIH should use its funding for this, instead of what he called ludicrous studies. He specifically cited studies that involved basically giving methamphetamine to cats.
Wow. And it's not just at the federal level, right?
No, not at all.
A bill in Minnesota was introduced attempting to legally classify Trump Derangement Syndrome as an actual mental illness within the state's official medical statutes.
It's a coordinated push.
And the rhetoric from the top absolutely fuels this. President Trump recently used the term to explain the death of filmmaker Rob Reiner, and he used it to attack the musician Bruce Springsteen.
Right. He uses it frequently.
And Elon Musk described left-wing TDS sufferers as reacting like they were, and this is a direct quote from our sources here, shot with a dart, that contained methamphetamine and rabies.
It is incredibly intense, visceral language. But, we need to separate the political spectacle from the clinical reality here.
Please do.
According to the psychological analysis provided by the therapy group of D.C., Trump Derangement Syndrome is absolutely not in the DSM-5.
The DSM-5 being the official diagnostic manual that psychiatrists use to actually classify and diagnose mental illness?
Correct. It is not a recognized psychiatric or medical diagnosis. It is purely a political pejorative.
Where does it even come from?
Historically, it traces back to conservative columnist Charles Krauthammer. He coined the term Bush Derangement Syndrome back in 2003 as a way to dismiss fierce critics of the Iraq War.
Oh, so it's a recycled term.
Exactly. It is a rhetorical tactic used to delegitimize political opposition by painting them as medically hysterical rather than intellectually opposed.
But the sources also make a crucial distinction here. Just because the syndrome itself is fake, that doesn't mean the psychological toll of this political environment isn't incredibly real.
Precisely. The distress people feel when engaging with modern politics is a very real psychological phenomenon, and it's driven by several proven mechanisms in the brain.
Like what?
First, there's tribalism. Our political affiliation has become so fused with our core identity that an attack on a politician physically triggers the amygdala. Yeah, the threat center of the brain. It literally feels like a personal, physical attack.
Wow, it's like we're wired to fight the moment we log on.
We are. Then you have confirmation bias and motivated reasoning, where our brains actively reject factual information that threatens our worldview, which just deepens the cognitive conflict.
Right.
And finally, add in parasocial bonds. We consume so much media that we feel a one-sided, deeply personal relationship with these public figures.
Like we were talking about with Dr. Oz earlier.
Exactly. When you combine tribalism, cognitive biases, and parasocial attachments with algorithmically driven social media that specifically rewards moral outrage, you generate genuine clinical-level anxiety, sleeplessness, and relationship strain.
So when politicians start using clinical-sounding labels like, quote, syndrome to describe people who just disagree with their policies, doesn't that completely shut down critical thinking?
Oh, entirely.
It turns a legitimate policy debate into a fake medical diagnosis. If you label someone sick, you don't have to listen to their arguments about international drug pricing or diplomatic strategy. You just dismiss them.
That's the goal.
How can you, as a listener, protect your own mental hygiene when the news cycle feels literally designed to trigger your fight or flight response?
Well, it absolutely shuts down critical thinking because it removes the obligation of debate. To protect your mental hygiene, the psychological experts recommend practicing strict media hygiene.
Media hygiene, what does that look like?
This means setting hard, intentional boundaries on when and where you consume news. It means recognizing the physical signs in your own body, like a racing heart or tense shoulders, when you are engaging with political content.
Right, paying attention to your body.
And having the discipline to step away.
Yeah.
It is about separating your core values from the daily outrage cycle.
Which is easier said than done, but so incredibly necessary.
Definitely. If we synthesize all the sources from today, the true value for you, the listener, is learning how to separate the noise from the actual policy mechanisms.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to navigate how Dr. Oz is leveraging international reference pricing for CMS mandates, or decoding why the State Department is being bypassed for transactional proxy diplomacy, or, recognizing when psychological terms are being used as political weapons to silence dissent.
It's a lot to navigate.
It is. Staying informed requires looking past the spectacle.
Yeah.
You have to always ask yourself, what is the actual mechanism at work here, and who benefits from me being distracted by the drama?
That is the essential question. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. We've spent a lot of time talking about the blurring of medicine, politics, and psychology. If we are genuinely entering an era where political loyalty is framed as being mentally healthy and political dissent is literally being legislated as a mental illness, how long until your personal healthcare data or your psychological profiles become a standard part of political vetting or public policy enforcement?
That is a chilling thought.
It really is. If you found this episode valuable, please like, subscribe, share, follow, and turn on notifications.